Joe Theismann's going to join me in about 20 minutes on the show. Mike Jones from The Athletic will be with me at 11. He wrote a very interesting story yesterday about Terry McLaurin after spending some time in Ashburn. Good morning. Max is with me. Brian's here. If the joint practice with the Dolphins, which starts at 10:30, ends before the show ends, Ben will jump on with us, but he has responsibilities out there as well, so we may not catch up with him until tomorrow. This from Danny A. to open up the show. Danny A. writes, Kevin, like your guest Mitch on the podcast, that would be Mitch Tischler, the other day jumped on with me. Brandon Coleman is plenty good enough to take the place of Tunsil. My God. They won 12 games with him 2 years ago, and he was a rookie. Stop sweating it, Sheehan. All right. I'll stop sweating it if you want me to stop sweating it. I'm not sweating it. I mean, if you don't understand that the second best player on the team being lost for more likely than not the majority, if not the entirety, of the upcoming season is a big deal, I just would disagree with that. It doesn't mean that it can't turn out well with Brandon Coleman. It doesn't mean that Brandon Coleman in his third year is going to be even better than he was in his first year at this position. And there is admittedly he's self-admitted that he's grown, he's matured. There are work habits that have improved. Some of that was probably part of the reason that they went out and got Tunsil to begin with in the 2025 season and moved him inside and then eventually benched him. He says he's learned from a lot of that. It's not a death sentence for the team, and I haven't presented it that way. They can be very successful. But Tunsil was a left tackle in which, being one of the 2 or 3 best pass-blocking left tackles in the game, you go into game planning unless you're facing Myles Garrett, which they are going to face this year. Okay, they are going to face Myles Garrett this year. They're going to face some good pass rushers this year. Some very good defenses overall. I went through that yesterday. You know, defense is variable. It changes year to year. But if these teams are as good defensively as they were last year, Washington's going to face a lot of really good defensive football teams this year and some very, very good pass rushers this year. But with Tunsil, understand that when you're David Blau, you sit down, you start putting together a game plan, and you come out on Wednesday with it, and part of the game plan is, in all of our drop-back situations, we've got the left side taken care of. We can focus on, the rest of the offensive line. Who needs help? Does Josh need help? Does Connerly Jr. need some help? Do we need to chip on that side? Where do we need to protect? Who do we need to double? You won't get that with Brandon Coleman. Maybe he'll develop into that. Maybe he'll develop into a great left tackle. It's possible. He's clearly got some talent. Now, Danny A., the timing of your note to me couldn't have been better, because Pro Football Focus put out its rankings of the offensive lines in the NFL heading into 2026. PFF. By the way, I thought PFF was going away. Didn't they get purchased? Didn't they get bought? Wasn't this a big story like in the winter or spring? They're still out there, though. PFF put out their rankings of the 2026 NFL offensive lines. The best offensive line overall in the league per PFF is Denver's. Philadelphia's is second. We know that Philly has a very good offensive line. Tampa third, Indy fourth, Chicago fifth. Those are your top 5. Where's Washington? Just started scrolling down the list. Where are they? Somewhere around 19, 20 without Tunsil? No, keep going. 26. No, 28. No, 29. No, 30's Jacksonville. 31's Cleveland. 32 out of 32 teams. PFF has Washington's offensive line ranked dead last after the loss of Laramie Tunsil. They write, before the injury to left tackle Laramie Tunsil, this was a group set to rank just inside the top 20. So not great, but 13 spots ahead of where they are now. But the loss of Tunsil for a significant amount of time is a huge blow to the group. There will be an expectation of some improvement from Josh Connerly Jr. and his 59.9 PFF grade in 2025, which was fine for a rookie. But this is a unit that could really struggle if Tunsil misses the full season. Yes, with Tunsil, there's nobody describing this offensive line as the worst in the league, and there's nobody describing this offensive line as an offensive line that could really struggle. Our focus, obviously, was on Nick Allegretti in the center position. He won't be back until Sunday. He's not going to participate today in the joint practice with the Dolphins. He won't be a part of the preseason game on Friday night against Miami. 32nd out of 32 teams from PFF. It's an opinion. Now, with them, it's a numbers, it's a quantitative, it's a statistical-based opinion based on the way they grade. And there is some obvious, debate as to whether or not, especially with offensive line play, if their grading is always super accurate when it comes to offensive line play. We've had, guys from PFF like Nick Ackridge, who I like a lot. Nick has told us, sometimes the challenges of certain positions, DBs, offensive line in particular. But, yeah, Danny A., it's a big loss to anybody that knows how good Laramie Tunsil is. You don't take the second, third, fourth best offensive left tackle, pass-blocking left tackle in the game out of your lineup and think all will be well. We're fine. We're not going to feel it at all. No, it's going to be felt. Whether or not it manifests itself into a disaster on the field, we don't know until they start playing games. But what changes immediately is that you view the entirety of the offensive line every week with an understanding that you don't have somebody on that line that is just good. He doesn't need any help. I think Cosme has that kind of potential, but really looking at the tackles and focusing on the tackles and how you deal with outside pass rush pressure. So it's a big deal. It is a major, major blow. The bigger blow would have been the quarterback, of course. Today, the team gets a chance in this joint practice against the Dolphins, and I honestly believe that this is much more valuable for the team in its preparation for the regular season than Friday night's preseason game will be, because more likely than not, you're going to see the starters in this joint practice a lot more than you'll see them on Friday night in the preseason game. You will also see the coaches really get after it in a way in which they probably wouldn't in a preseason game. You're not showing anything in these preseason games other than maybe one, sort of thing that you want to work on that is something that you'll be able to use in the regular season. This tends to be more of a tell than the preseason game itself. So we'll monitor what's going on out there during the morning as the show is airing during this joint practice. We'll follow some of our guys, Ben in particular, to see what's going on. Fingers crossed. The most important thing about these kinds of, joint practices, and then, of course, the preseason games, if any of your contributors in the regular season are playing, the most important thing is that nobody gets hurt. Nobody of note gets hurt. You want the work. You want the competition. You want somebody else to go up against to measure yourself. And this, again, is a better environment for that than Friday night will be. But fingers crossed that all bodies come out of this healthy. All right. I wanted to, speaking about Ben Standig, I wanted to read from his Substack that I just literally read right before the show because he just posted it earlier this morning. Ben last year was very much all over before anybody was The possibility that Brian Robinson Jr. would be traded or released, that he was not going to be on the roster. And he felt that way before camp started last year. And it turned out he was right. They ended up trading him to the 49ers. I asked Ben, I don't know, a week ago perhaps, do you have a Brian Robinson vibe on anybody yet? And he said, no, not really. Well, and I haven't talked to him about this. I just read it from his Substack this morning. He definitely has a vibe on a player, a specific player that he thinks could be in trouble. I'll read not the entire story from Ben's Substack, but he writes in a story titled, Quan Martin is the last man standing from Washington's 2023 draft class. What comes next? The offseason turned Quan Martin into a Will Smith meme. When running back Chris Rodriguez signed with Jacksonville, Martin became the lone remaining member of the Washington 2023 draft class. After a rough 2025 season, including a late season benching over a coverage error, and with Washington's safety room suddenly deep, it's conceivable the former second-round pick is the next one out the door. That's not something head coach Dan Quinn has said explicitly. Sometimes what's said between the lines about what's happening between football's white lines says plenty. Totally agree with Ben on this. So this time of year, listen carefully to the coaches, because if you pay attention to them enough, you can start to kind of read between the lines. They'll give you a tell here or there. The tweeting of the play-by-play from training camp practice is not going to provide that for you. Wednesday's joint practice against the Miami Dolphins is the Commanders' first test outside of facing their own. The teams will then square off Friday night, Ben writes. Quinn and GM Adam Peters have not been shy about moving on from high-round draftees selected by the previous regime led by Ron Rivera. 3 first-round picks, Jamin Davis, Jahan Dotson, and Emmanuel Forbes, were released or traded. There were clues along the way. Davis's position switch from starting linebacker to some edge rusher felt like a last gasp at finding a role for the athletic defender Quinn and Peters didn't draft. Dotson, 2 years after being selected 16th overall, played more snaps in a preseason opener than any other Washington receiver. That's not normal for any potential starter. Running back Brian Robinson's 3-down fit and overall vibe didn't mesh with Washington's plan, leading to an accurate case of Spidey sense and a trade with San Francisco before last season's opener. If we're reading the room and the team's actions correctly, Martin could eventually follow those Rivera-era picks elsewhere. And then he writes about the clues. He says, what the clues say about Quan Martin's standing, why his role remains unsettled, and how Washington's roster needs could factor into what comes next. Next, he gets into the safety played a season-low 30% following an in-game benching to a big mistake in the game against the Cowboys in Week 17. And Quinn said, remember, there are consequences to that. Martin played only 6 defensive snaps in the regular season finale the following week, his lowest number since the first 2 months of his rookie season. He spent part of the offseason in Orlando working with the same trainer who helped him prep for the draft. Martin put on 5 to 7 pounds while adding upper body strength. Through this stage of training camp, Martin's depth chart status doesn't appear to have snapped back. Then you add signing free agent Nick Cross established a new lead safety for Durante Jones's system. And then he goes on and on about Jeremy Reeves has entered the mix, along with, obviously, the other safeties, Will Harris, etc. So this is the next time I have Ben on this show, I'll ask him if he's calling his shot once again. And let me just say, this isn't as out of the blue as the Brian Robinson Jr. was. I mean, I remember saying in the 2025 draft, if they pick a running back anywhere on night 2, it's over for Brian Robinson Jr. They didn't pick a running back on night 2. They picked one in the 7th round. So I thought going into camp he was safe. Ben did not. he ended up being right. That was a good call. That was kind of out of nowhere. This one, we all know the Quan Martin up and down of his brief career here. Had the great game in the pick and the return against Detroit in the playoff game. There have been moments where it's like, man, he looks good. He looks like he can really play. And other moments, like at the end of last year, where there was a struggle. But, yeah, that 2023 draft with Forbes, Martin, Stromberg, Braden Daniels, KJ Henry, Chris Rodriguez, Andre Jones. Not Rivera's best. None of them were really his best. He wasn't very good at that, this just in. So I don't think it's the same level of calling your shot as Brian Robinson Jr. was a year ago, but I feel like he's onto something here. And you have the Ben question about Quan Martin from the other day?
It was Nikki who asked about it yesterday. Now,
okay.
They didn't hand her the microphone. It was at the end of the presser, but here's what...
All right, let me hear what he said, because Ben said in many ways the tone and the body language said everything. Let me hear it.
Sure. Yeah, he's absolutely putting in the work. So, number one, we want to see new system, like playing down, line of scrimmage, playing back. We've got talent at a lot of different spots at the safety, so the different calls, the different techniques. But his real value comes in the deep parts of the field, like his speed and his breaks out to the ball. He's also got good ball skills, so putting himself in locations to make plays on the ball, that's at the top of the list.
So more on things he's got to improve on. Versus, what did he say about Van Jefferson yesterday? Remember we played that one? Like, he lit up when he was asked about Van Jefferson.
Was very excited. Said he was exacting.
Exacting. I'm going to tell you right now, because I've had a conversation or two with people who say that if they end up cutting him, it'll kill them. I don't think he's getting cut. I think Van Jefferson's going to play. Van Jefferson, when they signed him, I was kind of excited because I've always felt like Van Jefferson has something. I talked about this when they signed him. Like, he's always played bigger than maybe his height listed, which is 6'1", I think, 6'1.5", something like that. He's always been a good route runner, a good contested catch guy. He's just never been a number one or even a solid number two, but he was good at Florida, and he's had some moments in the NFL. And what everybody has said about Van Jefferson, this goes back to the offseason, he is an absolute professional. He is an adult. He is just ready always, and you know exactly what you are going to get from him, and it is professional grade. Route running, understanding of defenses, understanding of what the play design wants him to do, and then he's got excellent hands. He's a good contested catch guy. He's a bigger, I think, maybe than his size would suggest, target. It's going to be an interesting, decision at wide receiver. If they cut him, man, that it's somebody said it's going to kill him if they have to cut him. I don't know if they will. I'm projecting Van Jefferson makes the final team. I mean, they need players. It doesn't matter. The interesting part will be, who will they give up on? Is it going to be Burks? Is it going to be McCaffrey? Is it going to be Diami? Is it going to be Jalen Lane? I mean, you can't keep 8 of them. You can, I guess you can keep 8 receivers, but yeah.
Well, and then people are clamoring for Colson Yankoff to make the team too.
Apparently very impressive. They've always said one of the best athletes on the team.
We're in a rock and a hard place.
Now, that's kind of a tight end, but he's more of a receiver than a tight end.
Still a roster spot.
All right, let's get to Joe Theismann. We'll do that next. Nothing like having Jimmy sing Hey Joe to bring us into the segment. The joint practice is getting ready to start with the Miami Dolphins out in Ashburn. We hope to keep you posted on what's going on out there. And Ben may jump on with us at the very end of the show. All right, joining me right now, the quarterback of many of our youths and the first ever franchise Super Bowl winning quarterback, number 7, Joe Theismann. You know I'm going to ask you about that. But you know what? I was actually right before during the break. Hello, Joe, by the way. How are you?
Oh, hi, Kevin. I'm fine. How are you?
I am well. I was thinking actually during the break, and I had forgotten this in sort of preparing for you today. I know you love that celebrity golf thing at Lake Tahoe. How did you play? I'm trying to find an overall scoreboard. How did you play?
You'd have to scroll down a long way, Kevin. I did not play well. The thing I've come to realize at a certain stage of your life is the golf courses don't get any shorter. You do.
Yeah.
And so I can't hit the tee ball far enough to be able to hit the 400-yard par fours in two. The course played over 6,900 yards, which is a long, long way. I mean, there's probably 2 par fours that I might hit in two. The par fives, they're out of my reach with the third shot, basically. So, I've been working real hard on my chipping and putt, to be honest with
right.
you. But I had a great time. I hit the ball well. I just can't hit it that far anymore. And it's just, Father Time's undefeated. That's the one thing I do know.
But I know, and everybody knows, how competitive you are. How do you deal with that then? Because this is, a bit of a high-profile event.
Oh, absolutely. American Century does so many wonderful things, too. I mean, from a company standpoint, they donate 40% of their dividends to the Stoller Institute for Research on Cancer and Diseases in the city of Kansas City. I mean, it's a phenomenal company. They do so many wonderful things. They put on a great tournament. We had karaoke night on Thursday night, 24 participants in that. We had wrestle.
Were you a participant?
No, I am not a participant. Kev, there's things that I can do in my life.
Yes, singing is not one of them.
I would love to do. I would love to sing, but I flat can't. I mean, I couldn't carry a note if they put it in a bucket for me. I am so bad as a singer. But it was a great time, and you just, I'm doing it now. I mean, I don't play up tees. Every now and then in a tournament I'll play an up tee, but most of the time I try and play back, and it's driver, 3-wood or hybrid, and then chip and putt. Try and hit the par threes, try and hit the par fives, and I'm still an 8 handicap.
I know you're a good golfer,
so,
and but the competitive part of you, I've played with a lot of former athletes, former coaches, and they're all different, but I've played with some that are just as competitive in this as they were in their own sport, but they're nowhere near as good. And I'm wondering how you handle not, being among the leaders on the leaderboard and playing to the level you want to play at.
I was. I'd competed. I'd finished third, I think, one year. This was my 36th tournament out of the 37.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I've been playing a long, long time. But what you do is, I think, to keep your own sanity, what you do is you continue to work on ways to get the ball in the hole. So, for example, I made a very fundamental change 2 weeks ago, and I didn't do it at the American Century. Instead of, I'm coming up about 5-6 yards short of every green on the par fours, into the mouth of the green. Don't have to go over a bunker. So instead of trying to take a 54-degree wedge or a 58 and try and knock it to the perfect distance, because you don't know if it's going to hold, you don't know if it's going to grab, you don't know if it's going to run out. So I'm just taking like a 9-iron, a little bump and running,
get
it on the ground, and treat it like a putt. And then if I can get inside 4 feet. I also learned that you have to keep your head down on putts or else you're going to lose them right. But if I can get within 4 feet, I feel like I can make the putt, which will get the par for me. So like everything else, you try and adjust and adapt and do what you need to do to be able to, like I say, get the ball in the hole. in the shortest amount of time. And so the approach used to be hit a drive, hit a wedge, and putt. Now it's a little bit different. So it's an education and a learning process, but we continue to do that every day.
It's such a great game, though, isn't it, Joe? I've got the bug. I'm addicted to it. And what you said is just you got to get the ball in the hole, and there's so many ways to do it. Especially as you get older, you got to figure out how to make those 4-net threes, 5-net fours to keep your teammate and you alive.
And there's no sense of getting upset. I see so many people get so pissed off. They throw their clubs. They get mad. You're playing golf. What could you possibly get mad at? Right. No matter
that
where
was
it goes,
kind of what I was getting at with you. So you handle it with good, a recognition of I'm this old now. This wasn't my sport. I'm not throwing clubs around the course.
No, gosh, no. I haven't gotten upset 20 years. Plus I played with my boys, and you want to set a good example with the boys.
Right.
It was funny when Joe and Pat were younger. They couldn't reach the bunkers. Then they got older. Then they started hitting the bunkers. Now they knock it past the bunkers and me. So it's it's just time moves on.
The flexibility of youth. It makes a difference in swing speed. Real quickly, who did you play with?
I played with Jay DeMarcus from Rascal Flatts. They're back together, which is wonderful. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, who seems to be. This was before the things that are occurring now happened. So this was, I played with her. Catherine Tappan, I had a chance to play with the ladies. There were only 3 ladies in the tournament. Those were 2 of them. And of course, Annika Sorenstam was the other one. And she finishes, I think she finished maybe 4th again this year. What an unbelievable swing she has. Now keep in mind, this is 6,900 yards. Marty Fish won the tournament. But you've got, guys just slam the ball. I mean, they drive. But she is so good. Anytime I get there during the course of the week, if she's on the range, I try and stand next to her and just watch. I have such an appreciation for her. And the ladies on the LPGA Tour. You watch their swings.
Oh,
some of them are about 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Like Nelly Korda the other day, I was watching a tournament. I think it might have been their Open about maybe month or so ago. She hit a drive 289.
She's so impressive, by the way, as a person. I've watched her and seen her do interviews and sit downs. I like her a lot.
I do too. It's a great game, and you watch them swing a club. It's effortless, and it goes forever. And then of course the tour has been interesting too. Is the PGA Tour has been interesting because you've got different people that are winning. It's the FedEx Cup starts tomorrow here in Memphis.
Yes, it does. In Memphis. Is that where you are right now? Yeah, Joe's always either here, Memphis, or where? Florida?
Well, I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was in Jackson Hole for a little bit too. So I do a little bit of traveling around, but I'll be back home in Virginia tomorrow.
All right. I've never asked you this, and it has nothing to do with your jersey number, which I'll get to. Do you think you had a Hall of Fame career?
Oh, I have. That's not for me to judge.
I know it's not for you to judge, but do you think you had a Hall of Fame career? Your opinion.
I can't answer that question. I really don't know. What is a Hall of Fame career? I guess I think
it's very subjective.
It's very subjective. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know if I've had a Hall of Fame career. I know I had the fortune to play with some great players that allowed us to enjoy a tremendous amount of success. Being the quarterback, you wind up in that success. But as far as as far as that goes, I couldn't answer that question. I think I said it is a very subjective question, and the answer is don't know. That's for somebody else to judge, not me.
All right. We've had a lot of conversations, doing 3-4 hours of radio every day over the years with the football team being the primary focus. There have been a lot of conversations about, our players and you and your teams. And there's something called the Hall of Fame Monitor, which is what Pro Football Reference puts out. And there's an average number. You're below that number, but there are Hall of Famers already that are below you. I'll give you right now, if you don't know this, do you know that the comp most often used for you in terms of a Hall of Fame discussion is Phil Simms, who is not in the Hall of Fame. I think you were a better quarterback than Phil Simms. But did you know that people always compare you and Phil Simms?
No.
Really?
No, I thought, no, I never really realized that. I thought that, I thought Kurt Warner might be one. You look at the length of the career. I think, the things that, I was fortunate enough to be able to accomplish with our team over a period of time. I mean, we were an incredible football. We were an incredible football team during the 80s. That period of time that I had the good fortune to be their quarterback, and it was really special. And I just look back at the times, and I would love to see someone I would love to see in the Hall of Fame is Joe Jacoby.
Yeah, of course.
There's no doubt in my mind that Joe deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Russ is in. Joe certainly. Those two were inseparable. They were connected at the hip. Their success was our success. John's success was their success. So as time goes on, you just live life, enjoy life, and I watch some films sometimes. Somebody will send me a clip of some of the stuff that we did, and it was a fun football team. And what's really neat about the clips that people send is they always include the rabid nature of our fans.
Yeah.
It isn't just on field the players. They cut to the fans in the stands having the best time of their lives, and that's what we're trying to get back to now.
Do you ever go back? I do it. Sometimes I get, I go down this rabbit hole and it's like I come up, hours later. But on YouTube, watching some of those games, I'll tell you do you do that ever? Watch your old games? Because they're out there.
I do, yeah. Yeah, every now and then. They're easy to find. I mean, every game you're looking for, you could go back and take a stroll down memory lane. Sometimes I'll do an interview someplace. We'll have a conversation, and I'll say, like the 82 game, the championship game, not the championship game, but the Giant game, when I got my teeth knocked out
in the snow. Yeah.
In the snow. I mean, and what I look at is the play of other players. I don't necessarily watch those games to watch me play, but I watch like Mark Mosley making the kicks that he made against Philadelphia and against New York, and the things that he accomplished were just amazing. And the conditions that we had to execute in, playing in Philadelphia where they brought in plywood covering to cover up the pitcher's mound, or St. Louis when we played in St. Louis and they decided to put rock salt on the field to try and give us better footing, not considering the fact that if you pour salt on a wound, it hurts like hell.
Yeah. Right.
But things like that. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite to go back and watch?
Super Bowl 17.
Yeah. I'm a glutton for punishment, so I've gone back and watched that 79 season finale, which I consider to be the most painful loss in franchise history, even more so than the loss to the Raiders in the Super Bowl, because, up 13 with just over 2 minutes to go, we were, 2+ minutes away from being the 1 seed in the 79 playoffs. But that game, in its entirety, is available. The Summerall Brookshire call of the game on CBS. Sure. It was the final game of the 79 season. There were no Sunday night games back then. And I still can't believe, after you threw the ball to Don Warren to get into field goal range from Mosley, that play ends with 3.5 seconds left, and they just rolled the clock off. That would have never happened today.
Well, that one plus, there's a couple of others. Obviously, the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys is one that I really love. The other one is, even though we lost, it was the Green Bay Packer game.
Oh, the 48-47 game.
Games up in Green Bay. The track
you were incredible that night. That was your MVP season.
It was 48 points. It was everybody. I mean, the best 2-minute drill.
Well, you
I
threw
ever
for
ran
4.
in my
So
life.
that was your highest yardage game of your career, right? Or was it the Raiders game that year?
One of them. The one in Green Bay could well have been. I mean, I had one. I think
398. 398 you threw in that game. I'm looking it up right now. I thought you threw for over 400 in the game.
Lynn Dickey put up, I think, almost the same amount of numbers.
Yeah,
because he was Green Bay's quarterback.
Right. I'm looking to see if that was the most yards. I could have sworn you had a 400
I thought I had
yard
one
game.
over 400. I thought I had a 400.
I did too.
One. Now guys do it all the time.
Yeah, and Mosley, look, I mean, he was the MVP the year before, and he missed I think it was a 39-yard field goal to win the game 50-48. He missed it. You got him in range.
I'll tell you. Yep. Like I said, I felt like it was the best. Had no timeouts. I kept throwing the ball to Joe Washington. Joe kept running out of bounds. So we get out on the field. Mark comes jogging out. We went through our routine. I looked at him. I said, "You ready?" Yeah, he kicks it. He misses it. I looked at him. I said, a few things. But one thing I said was, "You got to be kidding me." and he said to me, "You missed the spot." Because I would put my finger down.
Yeah.
I would catch the ball because, see, I held with my right hand. A lot of guys held with their left.
Yeah.
I held with my right hand. I put my forefinger down where the spot was where I was going to put the ball. But I always put it an inch inside of where my finger was. For all the years I held for Mo, I always put it an inch inside. He misses it. He looks at me and says, "You missed the spot." I said, "You're lucky we're on television. I'd kill you right now."
So I just looked it up. Yes, it was the Raider game a few weeks before that Packer Monday night game. You were 23 of 39 for 417 yards and 3 touchdowns. And truly one of the greatest regular season games of that era. Down 15 with about 10 minutes to go, and you guys came back. You got the onside kick, and then you threw to Joe Washington for the game winner late. 37-35 was the final.
And you know what's interesting, if you spin forward, it was that game that really was the interception at the half in Super Bowl 18.
Right.
It was a rocket screen that we ran against them, and Joe went like 90.
Yeah.
And Coach Gibbs, I'm putting it on him now. Coach called the rocket screen at just before the half against the Raiders in Super Bowl 18. I didn't like the call, but hey, who are you going to argue with? I started walking away. Matter of fact, he makes the call. He said, "I want to run rocket screen." In my head, I'm thinking, you don't think they know that we want to run rocket screen when we're backed up because we already did it earlier in the year? So I start walking away from the sidelines. I turn around, and Joe points his finger at me, and he goes, "Run it."
Run it. Yeah, you've told me this before. You said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Run it."
Oh, yeah, he was very emphatic. Run it. So, and then, about 5 years after that, he and I were having a conversation at one of the Youth for Tomorrow functions, a fundraiser, and I said, "Coach, I got a bone to pick with you." "What's that?" I said, "You know that call you made in Super Bowl 18, that rocket screen?" I said, "That was one of the worst I'd ever seen you make." He said, "That may have been the case, Joe, but the pass you threw, one of the worst I've ever seen, too." So we have our moments together.
Do you know that game, of course, ended up being a preview of Super Bowl 18. You guys would meet again in Tampa. But 2 key players were not yet a part of the Raiders, Mike Haynes and Marcus Allen.
I know that, yes. And Marcus reminds me all the time. We're dear friends.
Yeah.
And Marcus reminds me all the time. They were an entirely different football team when we played them in Super Bowl than we were when we played them in the regular season, especially Mike Haynes. Yeah, I mean,
how good was he, Joe? I thought he was the best of that era as a corner.
I wouldn't argue. I certainly wouldn't argue. His length created a problem. His athleticism, his ball skills. He had it all. He fit into a perfect system. It was all about pressure, and they could go bump and run, which really what Super Bowl 18, they forced every throw I had to make down the field that I wanted to try and get an out ball to into fades.
Right.
And it just the ball just carried just beyond Art's fingers or Charlie's, or it just carried just past where I wanted it to be on that particular day. But I think the guy that really made the difference in that game was Reggie Kinlaw, their nose tackle. We could not run 40, 50 yards to save our life. We looked at more second down and longs, third and longs than we looked at all year.
Yeah. Yeah, I also remember, the opening drive of the second half. It was 21-3 at halftime. We score, and we miss the extra point, and it just seemed deflating. at that point. And maybe there's not a comeback there anyway, but you guys were you were the best offense in the NFL in 83. You were the MVP. It was the highest scoring team in NFL history. You know all the things about that team.
Sure. Yeah, no, but you're right. It's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned the missed extra point. It is it carries over in not only just us, but if you watch games, you can just see somebody change. You work your tail off. You're fighting to get back in, and all of a sudden, every point has become extremely valuable. And then all of a sudden, you miss it, and it's like, oh, geez. Now you start doing the math in your head. Okay,
we've
now
really picked on Mosley today, haven't we?
I love Mo can handle it. Mo's got big shoulders. I know that.
I know he does. All right. I got to get to this because I've talked about it the last 2 days on the show. You know this, and we've talked about, in 2019, I was really, really pissed off that the owner would put it on you when it came to Haskins. I thought that was not the right way to handle it. And I know you won't necessarily say it, and you didn't say it specifically then, but here we are again. And look, Stefon Diggs is a great addition. First of all, do you like the addition of Diggs?
I do. I do. I like the addition. I felt like adding a veteran like him to the wide receiving core really, really makes a difference. I mean, Luke is there, Diami's there, Terry's, healthy and no issues with contracts or anything else. And I think Stefon adds an element to this offense, which will make it dynamic. And in that regard, I know where you're going with this. Let me just say this. I've been going through the depth charts, and both on offense and defense, if you look up the depth charts, the projected depth charts, the unofficial depth charts,
right,
they list 12 guys. They list
What do you
12.
mean? Wait, the depth? For wide receiver.
When you pull it up, they list 12 players. The receivers and DBs.
Oh, on offense, not instead of 11. You're saying
and defense on offense.
Right.
At the depth charts.
Yes, that's right. Because you have you got a nickel corner and you've got an inside slot receiver that are added to the depth charts,
and also a wide receiver.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, and the other thing I noticed is it looks like it's a lot of 3 receiver sets. It looks like it's basically fundamentally going to be a 3-4, what really is a 3-4 today when you have edge rushers. I mean, who knows? But conceptually, I was looking at some of that stuff over the last couple of days and thinking, wow, that's interesting. But anyway, go ahead, ask your question. I know what you're going to ask.
Yeah. So Stefon put out on Instagram. He's wearing 18 in training camp right now, and his high school number is 7. That's the number he wore at Good Counsel. And he said, for those that missed it on Instagram, y'all got to help me get the GOAT, and he's referring to you, to bless me with that number 7. So will you bless? I'll ask you just directly, will you bless him with the number 7?
It's not mine to bless. That is a decision that is totally and completely up to the ball club. That's my belief. That's my feeling. Like you say, I've been down this road before, and to me, it's not my decision. It's up to the Commanders to issue jerseys as they see accordingly, and that's where I leave it. And that's really all there is to say about it.
I know, but do you have a preference on? I agree with you. It is not for you to make the call. It's for the organization to make the call. But do you have a preference?
All I'm going to say about it, Kevin. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Well, then let me tell you what I think the organization should do. And that is to tell Stefon Diggs, we're so lucky to have you. We can't wait to see how you perform. Pick another number. Number 7 is protected. Number 7 is one of those jerseys at some point we may decide to retire. So pick another number, period. That's as a lifelong fan of this team, and I would feel that way about a couple of other players too, and numbers. But I hope that's their answer. I hope that's their answer.
Well, we'll see, but thank you.
What do you think about the team right now?
I like the direction they're going in. We are an entirely different football team than we were a year ago. The composition of the football team, I think David Blau, unfortunately, Jaden getting hurt and not playing the last month of the season last year, I'm looking at as a blessing because David had a chance to spend some time with Jaden working under center, sort of transitioning from a total gun team or a pistol team to somebody that works under center. And I think you're going to see it more and more around the league. You'll see it out of Mahomes. You'll see it out of Hurts. You'll see it out of a lot of different quarterbacks will work out of center. I just think I never worked in a gun except for one or two games. Montana never worked in under one. Right. And, there's so many more ways that you can be deceptive under center. Plus, the guys don't have to hold the blocks as long. Defensive linemen can't zero in on a direction, just one specific spot to go after you with. I think there's going to be a lot of versatility with Terry. I think you'll see him get the ball in a lot of different situations more than he has in the past. Defensively, like I said, I love the way they list the linemen and D linemen and linebackers. Sonny Styles looks like just a great addition. What we did in the draft was really interesting. You had 6 picks. You got linebacker, wide receiver, edge rusher, running back, and center, and quarterback. You basically 5 of those 6 were areas where you can add these guys and would expect these guys to make contributions. So, I thought they did a great job choosing people. And it gives also Antonio Williams a chance as a young wide receiver to be able to fit into the mode. And that's where Terry and Stephon can be great influences in learning the system, learning what they want to do. But I really feel like David being able to spend time with Jaden at the end of the season last year, sort of get him ready for the transition into what we're going to be dealing with offensively this year, was exciting. We just got to make sure guys can make kicks. About a third of the games are decided by 3 points or less.
Yeah.
And the kicker is an extremely valuable part of what's going on. It has been and it always will be.
What do you, this time last year when we're talking, everybody is super optimistic. You were too. You were blown away, impressed with Jaden. I think there were a couple of things that you wanted him to, develop and mature with, but for the most part, you were all in. You feel the same way this year after last year, a season in which, let's face it, he only played 4 games start to finish the entire season.
Yeah, no. It's health is always a great issue with everybody. Terry wasn't healthy. We were a shell of what we are as a football team a year ago. We had key players out, and now we lose Larry. Tunsil. That's a big loss. Coleman's going to have to step in, or whomever winds up at that left tackle position is somebody that's going to have to play some really, really good football. But I also think that being under center a bit, Jaden will be able to get the ball out of his hands quicker. He's had enough time to be in this league where he can make quick decisions and again get the ball out of his hands. And that's the key. It isn't, he's always going to be a runner. You don't want to take away the athleticism. You don't want to take away the instinctive aspect of him running the ball, but you want to have him get it out of his hands. If you're going to move, find somebody to get it to. If you're going to move, get out of bounds. If you're going to move, slide. Just protect yourself so you can play. You can play 17 plus games. I think this division's wide open. I don't think there's any one team in this division that I think is noticeably better than the other. The Cowboys everybody got better defensively, I think. That's the one thing. And the Eagles were there anyway.
Yeah, right.
But I think the Giants and Cowboys, Giants have got a lot of players that never really played to anywhere near their potential a year ago. Jackson's probably going to be reined in a little bit more under John. Dak, that offense that Dak has is unbelievable. And I'm thrilled that Jerry Jones did not make a decision I thought was going to be really, really important for the Cowboys, and that was to go get Jeremiah Love. You had 2 number ones. You could have traded with Arizona. You could have got our running back out of Notre Dame, who was the best running back. Actually, he was the best player in football and college football a year ago. And thank goodness he went to someplace else other than the Cowboys. But everybody got better. So I really look at our division as the best division and most competitive in football.
Take that 9-iron out, bump and run it, get it to 4 feet or less, and make your pars and move on to the next tee. You're the best.
Headed for the course.
Thank you.
Course. Thanks, Kev.
All right.
Bye.
Joe Theismann, everybody. Mike Jones from The Athletic will talk not only our team, but we'll talk about the rest of the league and specifically the division, which Joe was just talking about. We'll do that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Mike Jones, of course, covered the team here for several years during the 2010s for the Washington Post. He's been a writer at The Athletic for a few years now. As a national NFL writer at By Mike Jones on X, he joins us right now. Mike was here and out at camp a few days ago and wrote a really good story about Terry McLaurin. I'll get to that and some of the specifics from that in a moment. But overall, what kind of vibe did you get about this year's team? And were you there before the Tunsil injury or after?
I was there the day before, and then the day that he got hurt, we weren't sure exactly what the injury, when he went to the tent, we weren't sure exactly what it was when he walked off of practice. It was pretty early in practice, if I'm remembering correctly, right. But we weren't sure exactly what it was. So the Stephon Diggs first day, I was there, so you had the excitement there, and then the Diggs day, which wound up being, a little bit of a blow. But the vibe, a young and hungry team. Obviously, the defense has been revamped with a lot of younger guys. Should be more explosive, should be better. The offense seems like they're re-energized. Obviously, healthy Jaden Daniels makes a big difference. Healthy Terry McLaurin being there, not holding out, makes a big difference. It seems like they have a lot of competition at positions like wide receiver. There's some promise at tight end, in the running back position. So you want to see that. You want to see a lot of competition. You want to see guys battling for jobs because competition makes everybody better.
So where do you think, coming off that visit, and you'll visit with a lot of NFL teams here over the next few weeks, where do you think they, rank right now among not only the teams in the division, but in the NFC?
I think that they could be a 9 to 10 win team. So if you're 9-8, 10-7, that's pretty good bounce back from 5-12. And you really never know in this division here, because obviously you have the Eagles who, seem like they're the top dogs, but they have a rookie offensive coordinator who's only been coaching in the NFL for a couple years and has never called plays before. You're working to replace A.J. Brown. You've got a talented rookie, you think, but we'll see. And defensively, they've, had done some retooling here and there, but still have a lot of talent. So, they should be very competitive. And then you have the Cowboys, who obviously promise on offense. They're starting over on defense, have a lot of new faces, new first-time coordinator. That'll take a little time. So they were historically bad on defense. They'll improve, but they're going to take some lumps, and the Giants are starting over with a head coach. And, they have young talent, but they have to learn how to win in this league. So I think Washington can be right in the thick of things among the top, 2 or 3 teams if they can stay healthy. And they have learning process to go through with their own rookie offensive coordinator. But we'll see. I think, though, that it's very realistic that they could be competing for a playoff spot.
You know this, right? 35 new coordinators this year, a record number of new coordinators in new places, not necessarily first-time coordinators, but new coordinators to the team they are with. I mean, there's 64 in total, an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator times 32, and there are more than half that are new to their positions this year. What do you think that's a reflection of? Is it about sort of just the impatience that everybody has?
Some of it is, and then some of it's, the number of those coordinators got jobs,
there was a lot of new, right, sure.
Some of those, I think, say Joe Brady, Mike LaFleur, Clint Kubiak, Todd Monken, they were all offensive coordinators who got new jobs. And then you had Jeff Hafley, who was a defensive coordinator, got a head coaching job. So there were 6, I think, first-time head coaches, and all of them were coordinators. So that's a chunk of it. And then you have teams like Washington where the guys weren't getting the job done, and the head coach has got to get things turned around. And so they're making changes. So I think it was something like 21 offensive coordinators, 14 new defensive coordinators, a lot of change, because these head coaches know that the window of opportunity does not last very long. You get 2-3 seasons. I mean, look, Raheem Morris had 8-9, and was flirting with the playoffs last year and just barely missed out and got fired. In Atlanta, there you don't get a lot of time. So these coaches know, hey, we've got to, we don't have time for patience. And that's why I feel like Dan Quinn is in a really interesting position, because they had that great first year. Last year was really bad because of all the injuries and just age and things. And then he's starting over with 2 rookie coordinators, which could take some time for them to learn, especially on offense. And so he's got to at least be competitive, or otherwise they make a change. And so it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, and that's what all these head coaches are doing when they're making changes, because some of them weren't awful situations, but they had to, they felt like they had to get better. And it's going to be interesting to see which ones pay off, because some of these guys will wind up being one and done because their head coaches are going to get fired after this year. And then some of these new coordinators will be propelled to wind up being head coaches in a couple of years.
All right, I want to get to the story you wrote on Terry McLaurin, which is why I reached out to you. Terry, in his sit down with you, described this last year as the hardest year of his life. And he said, also, I've been going through some stuff off the field, just personally. There was another quote in which he said that he's had great anxiety that he's been dealing with. There was a lot in here between the lines in your story that I found interesting. We all know what he went through last summer, and we know that he did not get the deal that he and his agent probably thought they should get, and it was very, very tough for him. But it seemed like it was even more in reading your story, that he's been dealing with something. Tell me what that is.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it did have to do with the fact that he is so loyal to this team and thought that look, I've got great importance, they value me. And then when you go and they basically tell you, you're not as good as you think you are. We're not opening up the checkbook in this way. And he said that, he's somebody that gets anxiety, that worries a lot. And he kind of struggled with his sense of self-worth and wondering, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And then the whole business of football, Bobby Ingram, the wide receivers coach, said, look, this was his first time dealing with that. Bobby Ingram was a 14-year veteran. He said, I've seen it. I've been through it. And for Terry, your agent's telling you one thing, and then they're saying, hey, don't go to practice. You got to hold out. Don't be there for your teammates. And Terry's a very loyal guy, and not being there. So there was conflict there, and him feeling like, man, this is not the way I like going about things. And so I think that the battle internally with, okay, am I as good as I think I am? Am I as valuable? Am I being true to myself? I think that sprinkled over into a number of areas. And he said he really had to dig in and spend time with family, with longtime friends, spend time digging into his faith, just so he could really kind of regain who he was and figure out that his worth was not just tied to football, because all of that was swirling around. And then he finally gets a deal, and then he gets hurt. And so then he's like, man, this is not something that I've dealt with before. And you can't be, you try to get back out there, and he, missed 3 games, got back out there, got hurt again. And so nothing felt right. Nothing felt normal for him. And so it was, and Bobby Ingram explained, when guys are hurt and they're not on the practice field, and sometimes they're not at the facility, it's very isolating, and you don't feel. And Bobby said that he spent a lot of time trying to stay in contact and help Terry feel involved, even though he wasn't playing, because he knows how lonely that can be. And so all of that added up to a very difficult mentally, emotional distress for Terry.
There's a quote in here from your story where Terry says, I've been somebody who's kind of struggled with worry, struggled with anxiety, sometimes not feeling good enough, as you mentioned. It can kind of make you feel insecure at times. You mentioned that as well. That is such the antithesis of the position he plays and what you hear from most people who play that position in the league. He's always been different. He's been the opposite of a diva at the position. But, man, that was some real honesty about the way he was feeling, because he's certainly a really good receiver. But man, to say and to admit anxiety, worry, insecurity is pretty amazing to hear from somebody playing that position.
Yeah, and it kind of like when you pull back the layers and you wonder why the heck is A.J. Brown act the way he does here? Well, if you're not getting the ball a certain amount of times, then they feel like you can't prove your worth to your team. And if you're not involved in the game plan and you're not proving your worth to your team, then okay, are you going to be discarded soon? And so there's all these what ifs that play out in players' minds. And so obviously, if you're Terry, you were hoping to get a certain kind of deal, you got a smaller deal that was shorter term, and then you wonder, okay, am I still relevant? Do I matter? Can I still help this team? Is my replacement coming next year? And that's something that a lot of players at all kinds of different positions, deal with. But you're right. For Terry to actually admit that's something that not a lot of guys are able to do. But I think it speaks to the healing that he's gone through, where he's like, look, I dealt with this, and now I'm in such a better place, and I grew from that. He said, I wouldn't trade it. Even though it was the hardest year of his life, he said, I wouldn't trade it because it's helped me grow as a person, as a man, as a player.
Yeah, well, so you kind of answered the next thing. We're talking with Mike Jones from The Athletic, which is, where is his mental, headspace right now? And it's clearly, and you wrote this, he feels good, and he feels like going through that has made him stronger. I mean, are you expecting a big year if he stays healthy?
Yeah, I think so. And look, it's interesting because they bring in Diggs, who has been a 1,000-yard machine. I think it might be 6 of the last 7 years. He had 1,000-yard seasons, 4 Pro Bowls. Some guys would be threatened by that. Terry said, look, I've done this almost by myself for 6 years as far as being double teamed and not having somebody to really take a lot of pressure off. He was happy when they brought in Diggs because, as Bobby said, he just wants to be a part of something special. He, obviously he wants to have an impact and wants to be involved, but if you're racking up all these yards and your team isn't winning, it's not as fulfilling. So he was happy that Diggs comes because he said he and I are a lot alike, and it's going to help us because the defenses can't just key on one of us. Then the other guy's going to go off, and that's going to command attention. Then the next guy's going to go off. And so he was one of the first guys when Diggs got there to, extend a welcome to him. And that just speaks, again, to maturity, to being invested in the team and understanding that everybody fits together as a puzzle piece and pulls together. And so I do think that he is going to bounce back. He looks strong, looks explosive, looks, as determined and quick as ever. And, he's hoping for a big year. Bobby said he's expecting a big year out of him. They feel like this offense is going to be a lot different and lead to more opportunities with the more motions and things like that. It was against, it's early in practice. They're going against, their defense. Sometimes it's second string guys. But I saw David Blau draw guys open, Terry and Diggs and Burks and McCaffrey kept finding openings in the defense. Now, there's no game planning going on. It's just training camp practice. Right. But the X's and O's and the creativity that their offensive coordinator has is there, and they have a quarterback that can, do things with the ball that some can't. So I do think that Terry can have a real bounce back year and have an impact.
Mike, basically the contract is one in which he's got to perform this year, or he is, for all intents and purposes, in the same situation Daron Payne is in. Daron Payne has no years left on his deal, but the point is that they can easily move on in 27 without him, without much pain and penalty, because the 44.5 guaranteed is essentially all done in these 2 years, last year and this year. So does he realize that to stay here, he's got to have a big year?
Yeah, but I don't think, whereas last year he was, kind of plagued by that anxiety, or the year before even, of like, okay, what's going to happen? I think that he seems like he's much more secure in his standing, secure in himself. And he knows, look, I just got to go out there and perform. And then whatever happens, happens. He's learned from last year's experience. He's learned about the approach that he has to have and what he has to do mentally to help kind of protect himself from some of the adverse effects of the situation. And he's excited, he's eager, he's confident, and really just ready to get rolling.
We're talking to Mike Jones from The Athletic. All right, let's just kind of look around the league. It's always tough. The NFL is really, really tough to predict. But I'll ask you first about a team that on paper looks about as imposing on both sides of the ball as any team we've seen in a while, and that's the Rams. Do you consider them to be, in terms of just pure talent, the best team in the league?
I think so. And if they wind up getting Aaron Donald back, their defense gets that much scarier. But they have everything you need offensively. You've got dynamic wide receivers. You've got tight ends. You've got a two-headed rushing attack. You've got a really savvy MVP caliber quarterback and a great offensive mind. Then you look at the other side of the ball, and you've got, they invested in their secondary, getting, some all-pro and Pro Bowl defensive backs to go back there. And then you get Myles Garrett. You're going to be getting after the quarterback, and then if you have a strong secondary that helps your pass rush, if they can stay healthy, are the team that top to bottom looks like they're built for a championship run. Now you never know; somebody could come out of nowhere. We didn't expect Seattle was going to make the run that they did, but on paper, yes, or New England, but on paper, the Rams look like the team to be feared.
All right. Let's talk about teams that you just have strong hunches about. I'm sure you've been thinking about it, and as you've been visiting various places, give me a team in both conferences that you feel basically is being undervalued right now.
I know it's hard to say this because of the way things ended for them last year, but I think the Houston Texans are going to be a problem. Their defense somehow got even more dynamic and imposing during this past offseason. And they just need C.J. Stroud to play within the offense and to make good decisions. If he takes care of the ball and cuts down on 2 of those turnovers, they beat New England. And then obviously they're going to beat Jarrett Stidham and the wounded Broncos and go to the Super Bowl. Stroud is the second year. I was there in Houston, second year in the offense with Nick Caley. They're building onto that. They've overhauled their offensive line. They've added another running back in David Montgomery. Tank Dell is looking healthy. Nico Collins is a monster. They really could cause trouble for a lot of teams and be right up there in the mix. And I know a lot of people are looking at C.J. Stroud. Hey, are you going to get over the hump? Are you going to, is he going to earn a long-term extension? I think that they have a real chance to do that as far as the AFC. And the NFC, I feel like after, the Rams, it's pretty wide open because the Seahawks lost a lot of people. The 49ers, you just never know what their injury status is going to be. The Eagles are strong. I think that they're going to be right up there. Teams that could be underrated, Tampa could bounce back, or I also could see Tampa going the other way and going south and then wind up blowing the whole thing up. And that's kind of the reason why I think things have been slow with Baker Mayfield. The Lions could bounce back. Minnesota is going to be very intriguing. They've got a great defense, and Kyler Murray can add a new dimension to that offense. So there's a lot of teams in the NFC that I think the NFC South, they're all going to just scratch and claw and beat each other up. NFC North, we'll see with the Packers. They've always been close and haven't got over the hump. Could this be the year they do? There's a lot of teams that are just like right within like inches of each other. And I think it's going to be a neck and neck race with everybody trying to keep up with the Rams.
I'm so with you on Houston. I mean, mid-season last year, I started to act, and I made a wager on Houston winning the AFC Championship in like week 7 or week 8 last year. And I still think, and I've said this a million times since the playoff game in Foxborough, if Caley and D'Amico Ryans had just handed the ball off 3 times and punted another 7 or 8 times, I think they would have won that game, and they would have gone on to beat. They probably would have beaten Denver in the AFC title game. They no Nico Collins. They lost, I think, Schultz in the playoff game. They were banged up. But the question, you nailed it, is Stroud. I think Montgomery's a great ad. for them offensively. I like Stroud. I was surprised at how poorly he played at times last year, especially in that playoff game. I wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back with a good year. What are his biggest? What are the biggest concerns with Stroud?
Well, I think what they've done this offseason has helped take away some of those concerns. He was not confident in his line. There were times that he was throwing the ball away, and to defenders before he even had to. It was like rushing because he was seeing ghosts and thinking that the rush was going to be coming sooner than it was. So he's got a better offensive line, also stronger run game. That's going to put him in shorter third down situations. So and Caley is. I spent a lot of time with him, and he's telling him, like, you don't have to be a superhero. You've got the table set around you. And so if he can just make smart decisions, and we saw him do it his rookie year. I think he only had like 5 interceptions his rookie year and 20-something touchdown passes, and then the number jumped up a little bit the next year, and Bobby Slowick didn't do a good job of developing a counterpunch for that offense. And then last year he's learning a new offense. So I think in his second year he's going to be more comfortable, and I think he trusts what's in front of him a little bit better now. Obviously, we're going to see when the games happen, but just being smart, taking care of the football. And D'Amico Ryan said he didn't tell him he needs to be an elite playmaker. He said, I just need you to be an elite decision maker. And if you're an elite decision maker, sometimes that's throwing the ball in the ground. Sometimes that's, running it, or sometimes that's just, avoiding a disaster and living to see the next play. And if he does that, they're going to win games, because nobody was scoring on that defense last year, and they're even better now. Nobody's going to score on them, and they could have easily won a game against Denver, and I think that they'll be able to score and be able to hang with a lot of teams.
Yeah, I mean, defense is the most variable of the two sides of the ball year to year. But man, I'm not saying they were the '85 Bears, but they were one of the best defenses at the end of last season that we've seen in a long time. And as you mentioned, they got better. All right, a couple of quarterback questions. Is it over for J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota? Clearly they don't believe in him.
Yeah, well, they messed the whole thing up last year, starting him when he'd been out all of his rookie year. They should have franchised Sam Darnold and then just given him another redshirt year to play behind him and learn and understand how to approach the game as a professional, because that was part of it. I don't think it's done for him because he's got Kyler Murray in front of him, and Kyler Murray can never stay healthy. If healthy, I think Kyler Murray will be very good in this offense. If he gets hurt, the door is open for J.J. McCarthy, and if he's got the right approach and the right mindset to this, then that opportunity could be something that he parlays into to a bigger deal for him, a bigger opportunity and chances for him continuing to start. So we'll see what happens. It is definitely they're saying we don't think we can win with you right now, but again, if it's week 8, Kyler Murray gets hurt like Kyler Murray normally does, and they've got that defense, and if J.J. McCarthy can understand, hey, let me be a game manager instead of a hero, then maybe he regains trust and takes care of his future a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting that his career's over at 23 years old. I mean, Carson Beck is older than McCarthy is, but I just think as long as Kevin O'Connell's there, he's basically told everybody at this point, going out and signing Murray and then making the decision so quickly in camp that McCarthy's not his guy. He was the GM's guy.
Yeah, I
former
agree.
GM's guy.
Yeah, even though from, accounts, it's not like, Kyler Murray has looked amazing in practice. There have been times that he's, but that just shows you the professional approach and the maturity is what's standing out to Kevin O'Connell, and so we'll see again how it plays out. If Kyler Murray is healthy, then I am just really excited to see what the creativity that O'Connell has and what that offense can do. Again, if he gets hurt and, McCarthy can play smart, then maybe, he can heal things. But right now, I think there's a lot he would have to do to be able to get back in O'Connell's good graces.
I mean, for Kyler Murray, it could be a Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy, Oklahoma quarterback. resurrection in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell's certainly capable of doing that. He did it with Darnold. The big difference is Kyler Murray's about 5'8". I mean, he really is tiny.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson in Cleveland?
I mean, I think.
And by the way, why doesn't anybody mention Dylan Gabriel? Like, I haven't heard his name at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he just looks much farther behind them. They got a really bad situation there. I don't know if Deshaun Watson, this is basically his last chance. And I think that their thinking is, okay, let's try to see if we can roll with him, get a little more out of him. And then if it's not, then we turn it over to Sanders. But I mean, look, I know you can't put all the stock in training camp numbers, but I think he's thrown 9 interceptions in 12 practices. Now, sometimes quarterbacks.
Watson or Sanders?
Watson
Okay.
has.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, sometimes like Patrick Mahomes throws a lot of interceptions in practices too, but he's always experimenting. He's like, okay, let me see if I can fit this ball here and let me learn from this. I was in Tennessee, and Cam Ward throws a number of interceptions, but he and Dable are talking, and they're trying to figure out. He's like trying to learn, okay, what do I do in this situation? Can I fit the ball here? Can I not? I think Deshaun Watson's interceptions are just because he's bad. And he's just trying to get the groove back, and I don't know if it's going to come. And so I feel bad for Todd Monken. He basically, this is going to be a 1-year deal, and then they're going to blow the whole thing up. But I guess, he's going to get, $20 million to just sit at home. But this is, they'll go, I think it'll be Watson, and then Sanders will take over, maybe 4 weeks in, 5, 6 weeks. And it's just, unfortunately for Cleveland, the suffering is going to continue.
Mike, does Carson Beck have a chance to be the starter opening day for the Cardinals?
I think that they want to give him time. I think that they're intrigued by him, but they had him throughout all the OTAs where he was getting more action because Jacoby Brissett wasn't there, and it was just him and Gardner Minshew. And then early in camp, they gave Jacoby Brissett the extension. So I think that their thinking is, let's continue to work with this kid. He started the first preseason game, and didn't look bad. And so I think that he has a chance, but they know that it's a learning process, and so they also need to continue to improve everything around him. Offensive line is not very good, and you don't want to put a rookie in that situation. So I think Brissett's going to be the guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Carson Beck at some point this season because they're not going to win a lot of games.
Thank you. As always, enjoy the rest of the preseason. I think something you said is very noteworthy for everybody that lives on Twitter, training camp, play-by-play. Sometimes the interceptions are almost on purpose, people.
Right.
It depends on the quarterback and the coaching instruction, but that's why you can't take too much out of that this time of year. Thanks, as always. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, no problem. Always enjoy it.
Mike Jones from The Athletic, everybody. All right, the joint practice is underway out in Ashburn. We'll give you an update on that. There's a massive sports business story that I'll share with you when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. All right, the joint practice out in Ashburn between Washington and Miami is not only underway, it's ongoing. And there have been a few highlights. I'll read from various. I just pulled together a few of the tweets from some of what has gone on out there. Ben, was it Ben who tweeted the touchdown pass from Jaden Daniels to Stephon Diggs, toe tap back of the end zone? Linnell's been tweeting a ton. He tweeted, always been great. Payne's lightning quick. Kinlaw's violent. Special teams period going on right now. Commanders defense looks considerably faster. A lot of the tweets from last year's first 2 weeks of training camp were all about how great the defense looked and how much of a change it was going to be. I'm more interested in when we get Ben on, if we do get Ben on today, and we may not, but I'm more interested to know in the 11 on 11 work, in the 11 on 11, and especially in the down and distance portion, who's on the field? I still think that that's something we're probably going to get some clues, and these joint practices are more clues than the preseason games typically. But who's going to be on the field in Philadelphia on 1st and 10 defensively? Who's going to be on the field in that first, sub package 3rd and long? It's Durante Jones was asked yesterday about the pass rushers on the edge. He was asked specifically, anyone on the edge sticking out to you? Here's what he said.
Has anyone in the edge rusher room specifically stood out to you through the first 2 weeks of camp that maybe surprised you a little bit that you didn't know they had it in them?
Yeah, we talked about, obviously you got KC and you got Doff, those guys. I don't know if that's surprising or not. There's some expectations there with those two guys. And then getting Dorrance back has been great for us as he continues to work his way back through. We talked about Josh earlier. I think that he's shown some things, but I would like to just, I think Jean-Baptiste has done a few things the last couple of days that's really caught your eye, and you can see his athleticism. And so that room is continuing to grow, and kind of like the depth in that room right now. So I'm excited about the competition that's flowing in that room.
See, I think questions like this where you get them to open up and the names that pop into their mind first. So obviously he talked about Adafe and K'Lavon Chase on KC. It sounds like when they line up on 3rd and long for the first time defensively, those guys are going to, I think, more likely than not be the edges. But, again, a lot could change. He talked about the rookie from Tennessee, Joshua Josephs. And then he brought up a name in Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who, if you recall, this time last year, and even after his rookie year, Quinn and even Witt Jr. would talk about Jean-Baptiste and how much they liked him. He was another guy that got injured early in the season last year. So they lost Armstrong, Wise, and Baptiste last year. They liked Baptiste. They thought he could be a good pass rusher. He was a selection in the 7th round of their draft, their first draft, the 2024 draft. I mean, a draft that many of you have already completely given up on for some reason. I think it's a little bit too early to do that. But in that 2024 draft, he was selected in the 7th round. And there's only one player from that draft not on the roster anymore, and that's Dominique Hampton. But yeah, I mean, it's guys like that, especially with new coordinators that are more open-minded and haven't seen the first 2 years, that can emerge, out of sort of the consciousness of the fan base for sure. Because no one's mentioning Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Maybe Linnell would. But keep an eye on him in this run-up to the regular season. Owe, Chason, likes Josephs. And in terms of edge rushers, he mentioned Dorrance, who was our best edge rusher last year, coming off the injury. And remember, in that defense, you're probably going to see a lot of guys line up in different spots. I could see Luvu. I could certainly see Chenal and Jordan McGee and other speed guys on the field lining up all over the field. And by the way, in that front, line area, Omenahue's a guy that can really get after the quarterback and did in Kansas City. Is he in there for Kinlaw or for Payne on third downs? Who knows? Is Johnny Newton in there on third downs? That stuff, to me, is interesting as we approach the regular season. Big sports story that just broke. The Los Angeles Lakers have been sold for a record amount, $12.5 billion. Josh Kushner and Bob Iger are the purchasers of the Los Angeles Lakers for a sports franchise record-breaking price of $12.5 billion. This is a stunning turn because both Kushner and Iger were very involved in pushing the expansion, the NBA expansion eventually to Las Vegas. But they pivoted and made an aggressive offer to buy the Lakers from the guy who bought the Lakers last year for $10 billion, Mark Walter, who didn't purchase the entire slew of equity, but purchased a controlling interest in the team from the Buss family. $12.5 billion. It's interesting because today Sportico put out their list of the most valuable NFL franchises. And, the values of these franchises are skyrocketing. And the Cowboys now are worth, according to Sportico, $15.5 billion. That's up 21% from where Sportico had them last year. $15.5 billion. The Seahawks, if you've been following these things, were just sold recently for $9.6 billion, the most ever for an NFL franchise. But the Cowboys valued at $15.5 billion. I believe, hold on, let me just find it in the story. I think that makes the Cowboys the most valuable sports franchise other than Real Madrid in the world. I think that's what the story said. But here's what's interesting about this NFL, valuable NFL franchise story, Sportico putting values on the teams, is that Washington is not in the top 10. Washington is no longer in the top 10 of NFL franchises. They've always been in the top 10 for basically 20 some odd years. They fell one spot out of the top 10. They were number 10 last year. They are number 11 this year on the list of valuable NFL franchises, valued at $9.64 billion. Something's interesting about the story, and I'll give you the rest of the top 10 here in a moment, and also tell you the least valuable NFL franchise. In the story, they write that only once have the Cowboys not been the most valuable NFL franchise, and that was 20 years ago when Washington was the number one valued NFL franchise. And then they write, and then Snyder essentially diminished the value of the brand and of the franchise over the next 15 years to drop it now where it is out of the top 10. But the Cowboys at $15.5 billion, the biggest, and by the way, by far and away the biggest revenue generator in the league at $1.3 billion in annual revenue with an operating profit margin of $515 million. Pretty good margins in that business, the NFL. That's an EBITDA number for those of you wondering. But still, $515 million in operating income profit after a top-line revenue number of $1.3 billion. But they're valued at $15.5 billion. The Rams are next at $12.7 billion. Of course, this includes, the value of the stadiums if they own the stadiums, if ownership owns them. The Giants are third at $12 billion. The Patriots are fourth at $10.4 billion. The Jets are fifth at 10.35 billion. Obviously, that's the market. Philly is 6th, Miami's 7th, San Francisco's 8th. The Vegas Raiders are 9th. Atlanta is 10th. And then comes Washington at 11th, valued at 9.64 billion. The Seahawks are 12th because they were just purchased for 9.61 billion. So if Washington were to sell, the value that Sportico's put on the value of their franchise is $9.64 billion. By the way, I bet you they could get more for that because the stadium is going to, in 2030, really increase the overall value of the franchise. If you want to see Washington back in the top 5 as a valued franchise, that'll happen in 2030 when they open up their new stadium. But when you think about it, I mean, we are at just over $6 billion 3 years ago. Old Josh Harris, Mitch Rails and Company, and the other 20 some odd limited partners, they have seen their investment increase significantly. The least valuable franchise in the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, they've got an old stadium. No plans, I don't think, to build a new one. They're valued at $7.4 billion. The biggest increase from a year ago in terms of values, actually the Jacksonville Jaguars, who increased their value in one season 42%, up to $7.91 billion. Part of this story, by the way, kind of gives you overall the where the highest valued teams in all of sports are. And among the top 100, the 32 NFL teams are all in the top 38. In the top 38 of valued franchises. I think that's right. I may be wrong about that. 15, 18, 21, 24, 25, 28. No. All 32 NFL franchises are ranked in the top 38. The only sports that have any presence in that top 38 are a couple of soccer teams, a couple of baseball teams, and a couple of NBA teams. I believe that the Lakers, as the fourth most valuable team in sports, actually would jump up after the sale today. So the Lakers sold for $12.5 billion. Think about that. I mean, $3 billion more than the Seahawks just sold for, but $3 billion less than Sportico values the Cowboys. So that puts the last 5 sales in North American sports. The Lakers, in terms of the top sales, Washington's $6 billion plus in 2023. The Celtics sold for 6.1 in 25. The Seahawks just sold for 9.6. The Lakers were sold last year at 10 billion, and now the Lakers, the highest amount ever paid for a North American franchise at $12.5 billion. What did Jerry buy the Cowboys for again? Look that up for me, Max. In 1989, did he pay $300 million for
In
him?
1989, he paid a whopping $140 million.
Wow. My God.
The Cowboys now
15 million worth $15.5 billion. Not a bad investment. Look, Snyder, even though he sold it, $3 billion less than what it's worth today, still did pretty well. He paid $800 million for it in 1999. All right, when we come back, we'll update you on all that's going on out at the park, and tell you about what CBS might be doing with Tony Romo. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, and the Team980.com. CBS announced yesterday for their upcoming NFL season that Ross Tucker will join Ian Eagle and Evan Washburn, our friend Evan Washburn, who was on this show not that long ago, as its number 2 NFL broadcast booth, with J.J. Watt moving up to the number 1 team with Jim Nantz, with Tony Romo on leave. I'm telling you, and we speculated about this once the arrest happened. They don't like Tony Romo, and they're going to try to get out of this deal best they can and move on from him. That's my guess. Clearly, that's what they're doing right now. Whether or not they can pull it off with a termination with cause or some sort of settlement that's agreeable to both, we'll see. It's possible that he gets demoted if he does come back, even though, CBS is going to try to get out of a lot of the money they owe him. They still owe him like $72 million. Something insane, right? Not 72, whatever it is that's left on it. It's a lot of money. I have to say that Ross Tucker has been really, really good as an analyst for several years, and it's not surprising to me. I remember having Ross. Ross comes on the show, once or twice a year, and I remember hearing him call an Army-Navy game on radio. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago, and he was excellent. And I remember telling him that, and he's like, yeah, it's really what I want to get into more and more. He was doing a lot of analysis, had a podcast, the whole 9 yards. And, man, he is really solid doing it, really knows the game. He's excellent. He's been doing a lot of Eagles stuff, over the years because he's from that area. And now jumping up to the number 2 team. I don't think Ross Tucker was on the number 3 team last year. Jumping up to the number 2 team with Ian Eagle says a lot about what CBS thinks about Ross Tucker. So good for him. I'm happy for him. And the Romo story is really going to be an interesting story, and a story that's going to be, can CBS pull it off? Are they going to be able to actually get out of their deal with him or have a settlement that's agreeable to both? But they clearly are not as enamored with Tony Romo as they once were. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. Don't forget, you can watch this show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button when you get there. Amik Robertson's one of those new additions to Washington's defense. Played with Detroit. Expected to play a big role here in Washington this year as their nickel corner. The competitiveness of Amik Robertson has been discussed several times. He is high level competitively. And, the key for him is to be on the field and with a defense just like any others that provides some pass rush. So you're not isolated for too long. It starts up front, get that pass rush. Really good pass rush makes an average secondary better than average. A very mediocre pass rush makes a great secondary very average. Amik Robertson, a new addition to the defense. Well, he was on a podcast with longtime NFL reporter Josina Anderson. And he responded to, and I did not see this, Cowboys running back Javonte Williams essentially predicting that the Cowboys were the best team in the NFC East and would win the NFC East. He claimed that they're the best team. Dallas is going to run the NFC East division in 2026. And Amik Robertson was told about this by Josina Anderson, and here's what he said.
When we get to what we need to be, it's gonna get scary. It's gonna get scary.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because when I talked to Javonte Williams in the locker room with the Dallas Cowboys during mandatory camp, he said that they at the top of the NFC East. That's what he said, at the top. I mean, I'm going to insert it in this interview. What are you thinking about the division and the competition and how you guys fare with that so far?
Yeah, I feel like we at the top in every category with every team.
Oh, the top.
We'll see. We'll see, man. We'll see. Sometimes, loudest man always the weakest man. You see, we gonna like I said, we gonna chop wood, carry water, man. We gonna put the work in behind the scenes, man. Continue getting better, and then we gonna shine when the light's bright. That's what it's all about.
Amik Robertson responding to, as you heard, what Javonte Williams said. I like Javonte Williams as a back, man. Always have. He was big for them last year and probably will be big for them this year. He's got to stay healthy. That's been his issue. Hasn't always been healthy. I started thinking about this, and I want to sort of gauge your thoughts on this as well at 301-230-0980. I've talked a lot about this in recent years. The rivalries in the NFC East over a long period of time, you put them up against any other division in the league. I think the NFC East, in terms of brand awareness for a division in the league, is number one. Has been number one. Big part of that is the Cowboys are in that division. But there is so much history among the four teams. And St. Louis and Arizona, the Cardinals were in that division for a long time, up until 99. But, over the last quarter of a century, it's been these four teams, and these four teams have incredible history with one another. It's the division that's produced the most Super Bowl champions, the most Super Bowl appearances, the biggest brand in the sport in the Cowboys, some of the biggest revenue generators in the sport in all four teams, Washington much less so than it once was. But I've talked about that part of the Snyder damage was the minimization of Washington in its own division. Because the team was such a train wreck, both on the field and off of it, and such an embarrassment to the league, it lost among the other three fan bases some of the juice that they had for us. There was a 25 to 30 year period. I would go 71 through at least 2000, 99, 2000, where there was no doubt Washington-Dallas was not only the number one rivalry in the league, it was one of the top rivalries in the sport. And then people would also mention Giants-Eagles, Eagles-Cowboys, Giants-Redskins among the best rivalries in the sport at that point. But during the Snyder era, the beatdown of the franchise by the owner, we lost so much, and one of the things we lost was our identity, and our attachment to the other three teams in the division. Dallas fans clearly don't view Washington as the number one rival anymore. They view Philadelphia that way. They view the Giants probably second and Washington third. I know there are some Cowboy fans out there that are older that still have, feelings for the Washington history, the Washington-Dallas history. But really, from an NFL fan perspective thing, it's been Dallas-Philly, much more so. Washington hasn't had any real – we know we feel – animus towards all three teams, but it hasn't been reciprocated at the same level over the last 25 years. We were the redheaded stepchild under Dan Snyder in the division. We were an afterthought. We just didn't play in enough big games. The Giants won 2 Super Bowls. The Cowboys had winning teams. The Eagles have obviously dominated and had more success in the division and beyond the division than any other team in the division. And there were massive games between the Eagles and the Cowboys during, during this 21st century. Massive games between the Giants and the Cowboys, Giants and the Eagles. We didn't get to participate in as many of those as they did among the three teams. We were kind of left out. We had our moments. 2012, the season ender against the Cowboys for the division. That was a big deal for sure. I'm not counting 24. I'm going to get to 2024 in a moment. There were, some games in 99 when the team won the division against the Cowboys in particular, the Rocket Ishmael game. There's still some memorable games. Even when we were a bad team, there were memorable games. The 2006, Troy Vincent blocked field goal on Vanderjack that got picked up by Sheehan. He's running around trying to make a play. They grab his face mask. They add, 15 yards and an untimed down, and Nick Novak comes out and boots a game-winning field goal. That's an all-timer. 2005, the Monday Night Miracle in Dallas. Obviously, a legendary game in the history of the series. But that's now 21 years ago. Even 2012, at this point, is going to be 14 years ago when this season gets underway. Now, 2024 brought back for a moment Washington's presence within the division. 3 titanic matchups, mid-November on against the Philadelphia Eagles. They won one of those 3, lost in the regular season on a Thursday night to start with, then had a memorable comeback win in Landover in late December, 36-33, and then they played in the NFC Championship game. The last 2 teams standing in the NFC, 2 NFC East teams. It's been a long time since that had happened. Philadelphia ran Washington out of the building. Final score wasn't necessarily truly reflective of the game, but Washington was nowhere near good enough that day, especially on defense. And I remember, in the lead up to that game saying, this is what's so great about this season, is that it can be the beginning of getting back into the mix in the big NFC East, matchups and rivalries. This could be the beginning of something with Philadelphia. I hated when the schedule came out last year and the 2 Philadelphia games were in the final 3 weeks of the season. It's just too risky. Every season's a new one, and there was always risk that those games weren't going to be meaningful when you got to them. It would have been much better for kind of the rivalry or I think sort of the reinitiation of a rivalry with an NFC East team being Philadelphia in this particular instance, if they had played the Eagles on opening night, but they had the Cowboys play the Eagles, because you know what? It's a much bigger draw. I want to ask all of you who you feel the most hate for, the most animus for, the most, rivalry sort of feelings for in the division. Is it Dallas? Is it Philadelphia? Could it be the Giants? I think that's the last answer for me right now. Philadelphia has been the king of this thing for a while. Dallas has certainly won some divisions and won some games for sure. I mean, hell, Washington won the division in 2020 with a 7-9 record. But yeah, who do you feel the most emotion for within the division? Which of the three teams? Because we're just kind of getting back into this thing to a certain degree. We've been left out for a long time. I loved 2024. 3 games with teams in the division. That happened for Washington in 1972 when they played the Cowboys 3 times in the same season, winning in the NFC Championship game on their way to Super Bowl VII. It actually did not happen for them in 1982 because of the strike-shortened season. They only played Dallas once in the regular season, got beat, then played them in the NFC Championship game. In the 86 season, they played the Giants 3 times. They also played the Eagles 3 times in 1990. They played a wild card round playoff game at the Vet that they won. I still think that might be one of the great revenge games in franchise history. That was 2 months following the body bag game at the Vet on a Monday night in November 1990. And then, obviously, in 2024, they got the opportunity to face the Eagles for a 3rd time in the NFC Championship game. You don't get those feelings that become mutual unless you're playing big games against each other on a regular basis. And that's where it fell apart for us. We just weren't involved enough in the big games in the division during much of the Snyder era. And then on top of that, it was such an embarrassing, team that, others kind of just distanced themselves saying, well, that is the biggest train wreck in the NFL. And they happen to be in our division. It's not what it used to be, but it's what it is now. That's changing. And so maybe we're back into this thing a little bit. Who do you hate the most? Who do you despise the most? Who do you have the most emotional feeling about among the 3 teams in the division? I'll give you my answer when we come back. Max will give you his answer, and I want yours at 301-230-0980. Don't forget, all of our training camp coverage here on the Team 980 is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. We've got it up as the Waldorf Honda poll of the day on our Twitter account at Team 980. Which team in the NFC East do you, as a Washington fan, despise the most? Cowboys, Eagles, or Giants? I mean, again, I think, the summary of the NFC East when it comes to rivalries is, at least in the era of post-merger 1970 and on, there's never been a more intense rivalry than what Washington and Dallas had from essentially 71 through, call it 99, through 2000. Before the Snyder era really started to diminish the franchise and isolate Washington as a non-factor, the most non-factor team in the division. And then, the Cowboys-Eagles became a big deal. Look, the Cowboys-Eagles were already becoming a big deal in the 90s. And the Giants and the Eagles had big games. And the Giants and the Cowboys had big games. In 2024, it was nice to be back in the mix, playing big regular season games against the Eagles and then playing one in the NFC title game against a division rival. I'd love every single NFC championship game that our franchise ever plays in again to be against a division rival. There's something so special about that. And it's not happened a lot. Philly and Washington and Dallas played against each other in 72. Philly and Dallas played against each other in the 80 NFC championship game. Washington and Dallas again in 82. Washington and the Giants in 86. And then, I'm pretty sure I'm not forgetting one. I could be, but I think Philly-Washington in 2024 was the next one. For me, it's still the Cowboys. And I despise the Eagles because, although I really do appreciate their fan base, and I love the intensity and the passion of their fan base, I love kind of that bloodthirsty environment in Philly for a big game with their fans. As a Maryland alum and as a lifelong Maryland basketball fan, we got a lot of Philly and New York in our fan base, and I love that part of it. But I can't stand their fans. They've always been the most delusional. They've always been, the least pleasant for sure. But it's the Cowboys for me. It's my memories. Like the Redskin-Cowboy rivalry is part of my sports rooting DNA. It'll always be that. The most memorable games in franchise history, the majority of them have been, and I've got this I've been meaning to do this at some point. Maybe I'll do it before the end of the summer, before the regular season, because I put together the top 20 most memorable games in franchise history. Let me write that, make sure I get that out. I've been meaning to do that the last couple of years and just haven't gotten to it. I don't know why I haven't. But there are more Redskin-Cowboy games on that list than any other matchup. Redskins-Cowboys in prime time, Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night, all of the primetime spots, I think is still number one in terms of the most head-to-head matchups. Raiders, Broncos are close, I think. It's still the Cowboys for me. It's where I have the most memories and the most feeling of, man, I don't want them to lose this game. Even in recent years, in last year, the game in Week 7 at Dallas, a 4:25 late afternoon game. Jaden got hurt in the game. It was an exciting game through the mid part of the third quarter. Defense couldn't get off the field, but the offense was moving the ball up and down the field. I think it was 20-15 or something like that, late second quarter. And then Jaden got hurt, and Mariota threw a pick six, and boom, it was over. But there was a big feel to that game in Week 7 last year because Washington was still kind of back. What were they going into that game? 3-3, I think, because they had just lost to the Bears on Monday Night Football. It's the Cowboys for me. It is. Followed by the Eagles, followed by the Giants. in that order. But the Cowboys are still, for me, the clear-cut number one rival for my football team. What about for you, Max? You're a much younger person, but a big fan of the team. What do people your age think?
Yeah, I think if you ask somebody my age, if you ask them what the biggest Cowboys, Redskins, or Commanders game would be like that they could remember, they would point to 2012 Thanksgiving. That's kind of like the hallmark
Such a
game.
Big one.
Yeah, of my childhood. But recently, I feel like the conversation and the public opinion, at least among the fan base, has kind of shifted towards hatred for Philadelphia. And that's where I'm going with this. It's the Eagles bit. You mentioned all of that, the passion, the bitterness, the hostility is really the word I'm looking for, that they have for anybody who walks into that building not wearing anything Eagles branded is second to none. And I love it so much until it's directed at me and my team. So I've got to go Philly here, especially with just all the history the past couple years with how dominant they've been and us trying to break through, especially Jaden's rookie year. For me, it's got to be Philadelphia. That's where I'm going.
You know, for many of the players this century, like for the Santanas, for the Cooley used to say this all the time. Clinton said this all the time. They always said that Philly felt like the bigger, meaningful game and the tougher opponent over the years. But they also understood for the fans, it was definitely much more about the Cowboys, and they respected that. I mean, I remember I've had this conversation with Clinton a few times over the years. Clinton always felt like Philly was his big game, the two Philly games. But he understood that for the fans, it was the Dallas game, you know, when he was playing. It is for me, too. Definitely for me. That. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Phone lines are open. We've got a line or two open if you want to jump on. It's also our Honda Twitter poll question of the day. Go to waldorfhonda.com for all of your Honda needs. Joe in Springfield, who do you despise the most within the division? Who is, for you personally, the biggest rival?
Hey, Kevin, what's going on? Shout out to Max as always. So I'm going to make 3 points on this. One, for me, it started out as the Cowboys because of the huge rivalry in the games that were crazy. But for a while, Kevin, it was one-sided because Dallas had won, I think, 14 out of 15 meetings at one point. When Joe Gibbs came back, I felt the rivalry had come back, especially the Monday Night Miracle with Santana Moss and the blocked field goal the next year. And then we won by 21 to close out 2007 in honor of Sean Taylor. So I thought it was back there. And then, but I think the last couple of years, it's leaned over to the Eagles because, you know, the games, I mean, especially 2 years ago, those games were competitive. My second point is, you know, it was nice 2 years ago to have 3 walk-off wins against our division rivals, Giants at home on that field goal, the Eagle coming back to beat the Eagles in late December. And then when Terry McLaurin caught that touchdown pass with 2 seconds left down in Dallas.
Crowder. It was Crowder that caught it. It was Crowder that caught it,
no, but
right?
I'm talking about down in Dallas, though.
Down in Dallas. The season finale from Marcus Mariota. Got it.
Right. Yeah. So it was always good because usually at the end, we're always at the tail end of losing those last-minute games.
Yeah.
And the third point, so I'm still going to say Philadelphia. My third and final point is, Kevin, you just talk about how the schedule the last couple of years, we've had the division games late in the season. This year, 5 of those 6 games are like in November, and we don't play our last division game until January against Dallas. So who knows what happens? So, yeah, I'm going to say, I would have said Dallas, but now I'm going to say Philadelphia because Philadelphia seems more competitive. And by the way, Kevin, it's funny. I had some college people I went to college with that always said that they're from Philadelphia, so the Philly fans are the nicest fans ever. No, they're not. So anyway, talk to you soon.
I know, but I do appreciate it. Yeah, you know, this year, every team ends the season with a division opponent. So this year, Washington's ending with Dallas at home. But their 7 games, leading into the season finale are not against division teams. They wrap up of their 6 division games, 5 of the 6 by November 12th. I don't mind a couple of division games late, including the last week. I hated last year's scheduling and pointed that out to the guy Mike North from scheduling when he came on with us after the schedule. I said, there's just too much risk that those games aren't going to be meaningful. You have the two teams that played each other in the championship game. One of those games should be early in a prime spot, but they didn't do it. Let's go to Skip. Skip, go ahead.
Kevin, you named all the reasons why it's got to be Dallas for us old-timers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too much history going back to, like you said, 71 when George Allen went down to Dallas, and it was a huge upset at the time. And it just set the tone for the rest of that decade for sure, going into the 80s and even recently. However, I must quibble on a couple of things you said. First of all, Philly fans are not the most delusional. It is clearly Dallas fans. Philly fans will turn on their own team a year after they won the Super Bowl.
That's fair. I think that's fair. You're right, by the way, about Cowboy fans. Cowboy fans can be tough on their own team, too. But I think for me, before Philly, Skip, won that Super Bowl in 2017, remember, they were the last, the Giants had their several Super Bowls. The Cowboys had their several. We had our 3. And they were the only one in the division without a Super Bowl win. And up until 2017, if you were in a room with Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Redskin fans, the Eagles fans would be the chestiest of them all, and they didn't have one Super Bowl. And the rest of the division had, at that point, what was it, 11 combined or whatever it was? So, yeah.
That's true. But in the last 10 years, they've been to the Super Bowl 3 times. They've won twice.
I know.
So they have the clear bragging rights. They, but they will turn on their team. I mean, they booed their own team last year after winning the Super Bowl. But the other thing is Dallas.
By the way, even now, Skip, the division has 2. It's the most Super Bowl wins of any division in the league. The Cowboys have 5. The Giants have 4. Washington has 3. Philadelphia still has the fewest at 2. So of the 14, Philly's still got the fewest. But go ahead.
But they got the most recent, and, they're on a run, actually.
They are.
So I would say Dallas because you talk about delusional. Dallas fans are the most obnoxious. Every year they're going to the Super Bowl. I mean, even beyond anything that our fan base, and we used to think that every year, but Dallas fans are just absolutely ridiculous with always promoting their team. And it really is promotion because they haven't even been to an NFC championship game for 30 years.
I know.
So how can they be in the conversation for success in this league other than marketing and promotion?
With that said, they've had – you're right. They've not been to the NFC title. It's the longest drought in the league right now, right, in the NFC?
Yeah, in the NFC for sure.
Yeah, after Washington got to it in 24, the Cowboys have the longest drought. So with that said, they had 3 straight 12-win seasons very recently. Like, they've had better teams over the years than we've had, for sure.
It led to early ousters in the playoffs.
No, I know. They.
And so you talk about big games. The biggest games are in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know.
And they have not had any huge playoff games in 30 years.
All right. Thank you, Skip, as always. Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead.
You know what, Kevin? Like you, when I was a kid, it was definitely the Cowboys, clearly the Cowboys. That 79 game that you were talking with Joe, I took that with me into my 30s, man. That was such a painful game. And I know that's why they're number one with you, because of the 1979, December 16th, 1979 game.
You develop a rivalry with the team because of all of the joys and all of the hurts in those games. The losses were really, really painful, and the wins were incredibly exciting, and there were so many. Mark, look, for you and I, and especially for you because you're much older than I am.
I'm much younger than
the
you.
number of games that they played against each other over about a 25-year period that were the biggest games of the NFL season, not just the division. It was a top 5 rivalry in all of sports in the 70s, 80s, into the early 90s. But anyway, you're leading to, I have a feeling, it's now Philadelphia for you.
It is. It is. Now, let me say this. Dallas and Washington developed the NFL. Let's be honest. Without them in the 70s, I don't think the NFL would be as big as it is in the NFC.
Oh, come on. The Steelers, the Raiders, the Dolphins.
I said the NFC.
Oh, the NFC. Well, I mean, okay.
Yes.
Still, the Vikings were great in that decade. The Rams were good in that decade.
As big a rivalry as Washington and Dallas.
No, you're right. You're right. Washington, Dallas was the biggest.
True. Now, let me say this. The reason why I lean towards Philadelphia is because I look at Philadelphia right now, and I see it's an even Steven with both teams. When you look at Philadelphia, if you look at the team and you look at Vic Fangio, they would say the number one person that keeps them up at night is JD5. It ain't Dak Prescott. It ain't Jackson Dart. It's JD5. So that's the person, and with the talent that he's got this year, you can best believe Vic Fangio right now. Oh God, Stephon Diggs. Let's see how we're going to deal with this.
How many are we winning? How many Super Bowls are we winning? I forget what you said the other day.
I got us winning
27, 28.
I got us winning in 27, 28. And then we play
back to back.
Patrick Mahomes. We may lose that game because that's going to be the battle. It's going to be just like Super Bowl 13 when Bradshaw goes up against Staubach. It's going to be similar to that one. It's going to be such a great Super Bowl, but we're going to lose that.
Wait, so you had us winning the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, going back-to-back in 27, 28. That's been now amended to one of those we're going to lose to Mahomes and the Chiefs?
No. We're going to go back-to-back. We're not going to do a three-peat.
Oh, I see. The three-peat we lose to the Chiefs in 29.
Right. I'm surprised Max hasn't cut in yet because usually this is when Max cuts in because he cuts in.
Well, he's
Sorry, I was reading
down
about
furiously.
Tulsa Little League, but
yeah, he's writing down furiously everything you're saying. All right, thank you, Mark.
You still just think I'm older than you. My God.
Well, yeah, you're much older than me.
Later, man.
Thanks, Mark and Largo, as always. Let's go to Brian in Tacoma Park. Brian, who in the division do you dislike the most?
Now, what you said in that last segment is what I've been saying for years. That was Snyder's biggest sin. He did not take division competition seriously enough, and he made Philadelphia a relevant team. They weren't a relevant team in the 80s and
How
going
did
up
Snyder
to the 90s.
make Philadelphia a relevant team?
Because of what you said about him not taking the division competition seriously enough and how he managed a team. They blew by us. We had no problem handling Philadelphia in the 80s and the early 90s. This is coming from somebody who is from here, and I lived in Philadelphia for 4 years. The bitterness is definitely with the Eagles, and it's because of the fans, the organization. They always went too far. Okay? First of all, Chiefs V. They almost killed him. They put him in the hospital for 3 months.
They broke his leg. They broke his knee. Yeah.
I have never, and I'm your age, I have never, ever seen in any sport on any level fans cheering a player getting paralyzed. I'm not a Dallas fan.
Right.
I never rooted for any Cowboys.
Michael Irvin.
For 20 minutes, I was a Michael Irvin fan.
I know.
And for some of the younger listeners that don't know, a lot of the rules in the league now are because of how the fans acted in Philadelphia. You've been to the Vet. First of all, it was a landmine in terms of player safety and all the divots on the field. But that stadium went at least 2 years in the 80s of no alcohol sales whatsoever. no beer sales, none. Think about that for an NFL franchise.
Well, they had the jail in the basement. I got to tell you,
they have a jail in the basement with the magistrate on call 24/7.
Right.
And remember, there were glass bottles back then, which is why they outlawed the beer in the vet, because they were throwing them at people, they were breaking them and using them at weapons.
And they famously booed Santa Claus.
That hood,
Brian, you're bringing it with the passion for the Eagles. Let me just say this. First of all, I didn't say anything about Snyder making the Eagles. What I said is that Snyder, being the worst owner in sports for 25 years here, and the teams that we had, the clown show that our organization was, we ended up, and he did it, distanced ourselves from the rest of the division because we were an embarrassment. We weren't playing in anywhere near the number of head-to-head matchups with meaning that the other three teams were. And that was one of the things that the Snyder era cost a generation plus of fans, which was the feeling that you and I grew up with, which was, my God, the NFC East, the games with the Cowboys, the games with the Eagles, the games with the Giants. That feeling wasn't reciprocated for many of the Snyder years because we sucked and we were a clown show. And the other teams had more success and they played bigger games against one another. And so getting that back in 24 felt really, really great. I want it to continue. I want these games this year. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, these first 2 weeks of the season against Philly and Dallas on the road in the Fox Game of the Week doubleheader with Burkhardt and Brady on the call, and it's going to feel big. And by the way, hopefully you go into those games healthy. Nothing happens the rest of the preseason. Tunsil's bad enough. And you get that feeling of, I don't want to come out of that thing 0-2, man. We need at least 1-1. But then you get, a Sunday night game with the Eagles in November, and a potential big game, a Giants game is a Thursday night game in November, and then maybe you get a season finale with great meaning between the Cowboys and the Redskins, Cowboys and the Commanders. And I would love that. But you had some great passion for Philadelphia, and a lot of what you said is true. I'll just say this, and I know this might irritate some of you. I can't stand Philadelphia Eagle fans, but I do respect the way they bring it and the passion and even that bloodthirsty, ugly passion at times. There is a feeling, and I haven't been to the Link in a long time, but I did go to the Vet a few times. And in the division after RFK, the Vet was the second most raucous environment. I mean, when the Eagles were good, when you got to the late 70s, the Jaworski teams with Dick Vermeil, Wilbert Montgomery, Harold Carmichael, et cetera. And then you got to some of the teams with Buddy Ryan, certainly late 80s into the early 90s. That place was a great environment. There's a game that Washington and Philadelphia played with the Skins as defending champs at the end of the 92 season. That game's available on YouTube. It was basically for a playoff spot in week 15, because there were 16 games. It was the next to last week of the season. Washington had beaten Dallas the week before on a fluke play where Aikman kind of fumbled the ball in the end zone. And anyway, it came down to one final play, Rippon throwing into the end zone for Gary Clark, and the Skins lost 17-13. The intensity that you can feel in watching that game from the Philadelphia crowd, and the intensity of just the NFC East at its best. Madden and Summerall on the call. I mean, Madden says it right from the beginning. It just doesn't get any better than this. An NFC East late season showdown for a playoff spot. Washington ended up making the playoffs. So did Philadelphia. But that game was so good. Let's go to Beth. Beth in Greenbelt. Beth, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, I guess minority opinion. I dislike the Giants the most. Now, the opposite is true for their fans. I think they're the most pleasant fans, but
normal.
It just seems, yes, in recent history, I was in the on the bandwagon back in the day, but in recent history, it just seems like the Giants have ruined our chances for kicking us out of the wild card, kicking us out of the playoffs. Just they seem to be the spoilers, so that's why I dislike them as a team. And then I forget what game it was, but the
2016 season finale when we lost to them at home.
Season, yeah, in January 2017. Yeah. So and it just and so that's why I dread the matchups with them. But so that's it. Just I don't really mind Cowboy fans from Texas, but the ones that are not from
the ones that are here are the worst. I'm on a text thread with Doc and Cowboy Clay. I mean, it's not fit for air, some of the things that are said. But Cowboy fans can be awfully delusional. Of course, Cowboy Clay's sense of humor is to essentially say that everything about our team is great, and how could the Cowboys possibly win a division with a team as good as Washington in it? Beth, thank you. Steve in Columbia, finish it up for us. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? Hey, most definitely Philly. I go back to the days of the body bag game with Buddy Ryan, the game where he didn't shake Gibbs' hand after the game. But the current Eagles, the arrogance of that fan base, I cannot stand that fan base and that coach running around with that henchman, that security guy, and all that it's just that whole thing. The smirk on Jalen's face, all that stuff, man. I can't stand Philly fans. And my family's from Philly. Can't stand them.
Yeah, it's a tough fan base to stomach. That's for sure. Look, we put this up on Twitter. I'll give you the results when we come back. Also, give you an update on what turned out to be a pretty exciting kicking competition at the joint practice with the Dolphins. We'll finish up with that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. our Waldorf Honda Twitter poll of the day. Which team in the NFC East do you despise the most? The Eagles are the front runner right now at 51.4%. The Cowboys at 45%. The Giants at 3.6%. From Wise, True, and Fair, who cares? Rivalries were with the Redskins, not this bastard team. From Kevinisms, I appreciate that. As an aside, watching the Cowboys lose in the playoffs is way more enjoyable than seeing the same for the Eagles and the Giants. I totally agree with that. During the years in which we were basically not a factor and the Cowboys were in the playoffs, seeing them lose in the playoffs, much more enjoyable than seeing the Giants and the Eagles lose in the playoffs. All right, so out at the joint practice today against the Dolphins, everybody tweeting that Jaden Daniels was on fire and looked great. His accuracy, Ben Standig tweeted out 3 fire emojis. Also, the kicking competition. We had a day, I don't know if that was yesterday or the day before, I think it was on Monday, in which neither Drew Stevens, the rookie from Iowa, or Jake Moody kicked well at all. In fact, I think Jake Moody was 0 for on Monday. Today, in this joint practice, how about both kickers going 6 for 6 on field goals? Jake Moody, he had 6 successful kicks in 6 attempts. That included a 53 and a 58-yarder. Drew Stevens went 6 for 6 and had a kick that went 60 yards. And Ben tweeted the height on his kicks is something. So there you go. The kicking battle. I have no idea what will happen on Friday night. I think that we're going to give Jake Moody the first shot at it. That's my guess. Look, the reports on Jaden throughout camp have been really, really positive. His accuracy's never been in doubt. I mean, last year, I don't know how you evaluate last year, but his release and his accuracy on pretty much any throw is elite level. I think anybody that knows Jaden Daniels and knows even a small amount about football knows he's got a perfect release. It is super quick, and he is accurate on pretty much any throw that he makes. But you know what? Quinyon Mitchell's not covering any of the receivers, nor is Cooper DeJean. Nobody's blocking Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis or trying to handle, outside rushers like Jonathan Grenard, who may actually not even play in the opener because he's hurt. So we'll see what happens. And for those that don't know, Miami predicted to be pretty much the worst team in the NFL this year. The NFL.com put out their preseason power rankings today, and the Dolphins were the 32nd ranked team out of 32. Washington, 29th out of 32 teams. That is really, really low. There's no way I could look at Washington objectively, and it's hard for me to do that, but if I tried, there's no way they're the 29th best team on paper going in. They got the Browns ahead of them. They got the Cardinals ahead of them. The Cardinals have the lowest over-under of any team in the league at 3.5. They got the Giants in front of them. They got the Titans in front of them. Come on. I think objectively Washington's probably going into this season somewhere in the high teens, low 20s. But I think the key, of course, as we've been talking about now, the quarterback. If he plays in all these games, they're going to win 9 at least. All right, thanks to Mike Jones, who joined us on the show today. Thanks to Joe Theismann. Max and Brian did great jobs today. Back tomorrow. Chris is next.